Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Gaming in the Wild, a video games podcast about games from the artistic, creative side of the tracks, from indie to AAA. My name's John, I'm your host, and I am recording on the 13th of January 2023. It's the start of a new year. The Games of the Year season is over. We did 5 episodes about it on Gaming in the Wild, with a variety of guests and a final cut. And there's been a really nice response to those lists. It's been really fun to put those out and to hear what people have to say about the picks that I made, and the games that I loved last year. And there is a little bit more Games of the Year to come in this episode. I thought I was all done, but there was one guest that I was hoping to rope into an episode, and times didn't quite line up with the holiday season and all of that stuff. And it was Ciaran Daly, a friend of the show, and a guest who appeared last year to talk about Elden Ring, and has been on Games of the Year episodes before. I finally got together with Ciaran, and we had a really good long chat. We talked about what Ciaran has been playing since we last spoke. He's been playing an interesting variety of games. We talked about his Games of the Year, and had a little chat about Elden Ring. Went to some interesting places, I think. We talked about Elden Ring last year, but we were only just really beginning the game. I think we were 20 hours deep, and we'd played a little bit of Limgrave, a little bit of Caelid, and we were just finding our feet within the game. Ciaran is much further on now, and my thoughts on the game have developed since then. So it was really fun to check in on Elden Ring and just see where we are both at with that game. Ciaran also highlighted Stray as one of his games of last year, so we talked about Stray, and that conversation was really interesting because if you put those two games next to each other, that's an interesting conversation to be had there about hand-holding and about plot delivery and about hubs versus open worlds and linear gameplay versus complete freedom. And so we got kind of philosophical, and we talked about those things in relation to those two games. And then we wrap up the episode talking about our hopes and dreams for this year. Hollow Knight Silksong is coming, Tears of the Kingdom is coming, and Starfield is coming. So we talked about all of those games as well. It was a really good conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it. But seeing as this is the first episode of January that I've recorded since at least the first, I've been rolling out episodes that were pre-recorded. I thought it might be fun to go through just a couple games that are coming out this month. There was a bit of a break. The first couple of weeks were a little empty, but there are a few games here. Some are coming to Game Pass, some are coming out for the first time. And so I'm going to run through a couple of January releases, starting on the 12th with a game called Lone Ruin. This isn't a game that I was familiar with until just last week. It is out now as I record this, and as you are hearing it, I have a code for this one, but I haven't opened it yet. It's a twin-stick shooter with a really cool visual style. I'm always here for a bit of twin-stick action. It's out on PC and Switch. It's pretty stylish. There's this neon look to it. So you can expect to hear me talk more about Lone Ruin, but it is out now. On the 19th, some classic games or some much-loved games come to Game Pass, as well as to PC, PlayStation, and Switch, and they are Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable. I'm not a huge Persona guy, but I know a lot of listeners are and love those games, and so there is more Persona coming your way on the 19th. Also on the 19th, kind of an interesting one, Colossal Cave. This is a 1975 text adventure that has been reimagined in 3D, and that's coming out on the 19th as well. On the 20th, the first big Nintendo game of the year, Fire Emblem Engage, is coming to Switch. I know a lot of people will be excited about that one too. Also on the 20th, this is one that I'm excited about. Monster Hunter Rise is coming to Game Pass. I've never played Monster Hunter, but I talk a lot on Twitter about how much I like the combat in Horizon. And people always say to me, you have to play Monster Hunter if you like that combat. I never have, but I have listened to a fair bit of material about Monster Hunter Rise. And it sounds fun. It sounds like a good entry point into the series. So I'm excited for Monster Hunter Rise to come out to Game Pass on the 20th. On the 24th, a bit of a mysterious one. I don't know why it's mysterious, honestly, because we've had a demo and we've had endless trailers and gameplay glimpses. It is Forspoken, which is coming to PC and PS5. This is the Square Enix published open world RPG made by the team behind, I believe, Final Fantasy 15. It has parkour. It has a modern day Earth heroine who is sucked into a mystical realm. It has fast traversal and magical action-adventure combat. I've played the demo for 2 hours. I did not finish the demo. And if you didn't finish the demo of a game, that's a big chink in whether or not you should buy the game. So I think I'm going to fish around for a promo of that one to try it, but I never get promos from Square Enix, so it might be one that I wait on playing for a while. But Forspoken is coming out on the 24th. 27th, Dead Space Remake is coming to PC, PS5 and Xbox Series. I am super interested in this one. I played a little bit of the original Dead Space last year around Halloween, and I really liked it, actually. It's a really high quality game, so I'll be watching the reviews with interest on Dead Space. And then finally, on the 31st, the first big game of the year for me personally, the first one that I have bolded up in my list here, it's an indie game called Season, A Letter to the Future, which is coming out on PC and PlayStation 5. I played a demo of this one last year. It's a game in which you are in a beautiful, natural world, and you bicycle around the place, you take pictures, you record sounds, and you assemble them into a journal, and you are documenting the change of season in this world. It's a wistful game. It's got a nice edge of melancholy to it, and something that I think relates a little bit to our climate-centric times, the feeling that the world is changing. And so Season I'm very excited about. That one's coming out on the 31st of January, and that's the first big game of the year for me. I have also been working on a big list of indie games and interesting games that are coming out across the course of this year, such as Birth, Terranil, Chia, Harold Halibut, Thirsty Suitors, High Water. There are so many coming, and I think I'm going to save those and do a proper look at those. Maybe I'll pack those into a preview episode of all of the indie games that I'm excited about across the course of 2023. Seeing as me and Ciaran talked for a really long time, maybe that would push this episode up to a silly length. So I'm going to hang on to this list and keep working on it, because more information is coming out all the time in January as people start to look to their year ahead and decide when their games are coming and to give them release dates. So expect a full 2023 indie game preview episode in the future. But before we get onto that conversation with Ciaran, please do allow me to mention that this is a patron-supported show. I would like to say a big thank you to Gordon, the show's newest patron. Gordon has come back to gaming recently after some time away and became a patron of the show. So thank you very much to Gordon. And if you are interested in joining the Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/gaminginthewild for as little as $1 a month, or $3 or $5. And for that you will get occasional bonus episodes. I have one coming soon about music from last year and video game music from last year. You will also get an invitation to the Discord, where we hang out and we play Guess the Game. We play Wordle. We talk about what's coming up, what's on sale, what we're playing. We have a couple of Games of the Moment channels. People at the minute are playing Chained Echoes and Lil Gator Game, and both of which you can expect to hear me talking about in future episodes. So it's lots of fun in the Discord. You're welcome to join us. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild if you'd like to support the show and join the gang. And with that said, let's move on to this guest episode with Ciaran Daly of the Radical Art Review, and I hope you enjoy it. So I am very happy to be joined this week by a friend of the show, my gaming mentor, Ciaran Daly of the Radical Art Review. Ciaran, how you doing?
Hello, good evening. It is a rainy day in England.
It's a snowy, icy day in Iceland. I'm very happy to have you back on the show. It has been a while. I think maybe the last time was us talking for like 2 hours about Elden Ring.
Oh yeah, when was that?
When it first came out, like last summer, I guess.
I don't even know when it came out.
Me neither. But you persisted with that game a little bit more, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in due course. Anyway, to start off with, I was going to say, like, you, Ciaran, are a tech reporter, and when I came and stayed with you, I saw you on the beat, getting on your laptop every day and scouring the internet and reporting on all kinds of crazy tech stories about nanobots and about AI and all of that kind of shit. But gaming is also like a little bit of a part of your beat, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I think in my day job, I'm a technology reporter for a newspaper in the UK. I have to balance, general stuff that the general public is interested in. Most people who don't game are just, when it comes to tech, are interested in whether their iPhone is going to break, or if something kind of weird or crazy happened on TikTok. I don't know. But gaming you realise is a narrower but very much growing audience. And I think a lot of gaming journalists probably tell you it's a lot of work to just cover that as a patch on its own. And I feel like I don't really get to do it justice a lot of the time, because a lot of the publications that do well have a very granular, approach to things. You'll get like a walkthrough or something. And in my job, I don't really have time to do walkthroughs and cover every single release and everything. But I get to touch upon the odd thing, especially more popular things like Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, FIFA. Games I actually don't really play that much, but that maybe a lot of people do. So they deserve a bit of gaming as well, don't they?
They do, and they get it. But when I was staying with you, like, it was pretty funny for me because you'd already been at work a couple of hours by the time that I emerged and came and said hello and got a coffee, and you would like tell me the weirdest story of the day that you were reporting on, and it was always something interesting. Was there any like weird gaming stuff that crossed your desk last year?
Last year? An interesting question. It's quite a hard one because I write about 5 stories a day. So honestly, all of that just goes into a memory hole. And I'm sure that one day someone is going to hold up something I wrote in the last year and be like, I can't believe you said this in 2022. And I'll have no idea that I even said it. But there was, right at the start of the year, I remember there was a guy near me actually, and I found him on Facebook Marketplace. He was selling his PS5, which he'd only just bought because he wanted to go and fund a trip to Ukraine as a foreign fighter or something. And then we did the whole story, went and interviewed him, spoke to him, and he kind of said, oh yeah, he told his parents he was only going to go for a couple of months, and then he let on to the interviewer that it was going to be 2 years at least. And then the parents found out after the article was published, and we had to put a very clear retraction right at the end, which sort of ruined the piece actually. It was like, oh yeah, this guy was going to do this, but yeah, he actually hasn't.
Wow, I wonder what became of him selling his PS5 and packing off to Ukraine.
I think he probably kept the PS5.
All right, and also you do Radical Art Review as well, the independent print magazine. How many issues has there been now?
It's been 9. We're entering our 10th issue this year. The last one came out in August. We had a big break from it actually. I think there's a team of 9 of us. We're all very good at like having lots of ideas and going, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But we all work day jobs as voluntary, so you have a lot of time to do everything we want to do. But last week we all sat down as a group, and our kind of visual director, Georgia, she ran a manifesto workshop. Had everyone there doing idea generation. So right now we're working on a manifesto for the year as a sort of collective exercise to try and focus what the magazine is going to be this year. And you know what? It was a very, very good session actually. Trying to think about what your priorities are as a publication. You get kind of 5, 6 years, 7 years down the line, and you sometimes if you're in a group and it's a very fluid thing, you can lose sight of things a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at the minute. Is trying to align what our vision is for the year, and we're going to do another issue this year. But we'll be doing more things with video, more things with community-focused stuff, I think, judging from the conversations we've had. Yeah.
Nice. I'm always excited to see what your issues will be. There's always like a theme for every issue, and there's always a beautiful cover, and it's always like a super interesting and unusual bunch of articles that come up. I was planning to do something about Norco for you, because it's like quite a socially minded enterprise, isn't it? It's like very much about, it's got certain sort of left-wing political slant to it, and all of that kind of stuff. And I think like of all the games that I played last year, Norco was the one that seemed to like scream radical art review to me most. But yeah, it'd be fun to do more games writing and more games coverage for you at some point. But
definitely.
I wanted to ask you actually. So you don't get a lot of time for gaming. You are the person who is partially responsible for this podcast because you kicked me off back into gaming when you made me play Journey one rainy night in London. And so I'd love to reiterate that story when you come on. I consider you my gaming mentor for that reason, which I think is a funny thing to say. But you've said that you haven't had an awful lot of time for gaming in the last year. Every time I've asked you what you're playing, it's been like this and that. But over the holidays, there is obviously like a bit of downtime for everybody to kind of pick up a few games over the holiday time. So was there anything fun that you played over the holidays? What have you been getting into across the Christmas period and so forth?
Yeah, I think over Christmas and the holidays, I don't know, I think last year really Elden Ring dominated my entire year. Like if I was gaming, it was Elden Ring. I'd say almost exclusively because of just how much of a time sink that game is. But I also just had a lot happening in my personal life. You know, I like met my partner and everything, and I've just been very busy, like having fun and outside adventures and everything. But yeah, over Christmas, I guess I had 4 days in Essex, my mum's. I had maybe another week up north in Northumberland. So I had a lot of train journeys. So I brought my Switch with me, and I went on the little Christmas Switch Nintendo eStore sale, and I picked up a bunch of games. Yeah, I got the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater remaster. I got the Portal Collection. I got the new Pokemon. I got sent that as a review copy. And I think before that, I'd also had a little break. I mean, Elden Ring, I kind of tailed off in August sort of time, maybe even earlier. It had been a good few months since I played it. And in that time, I think I just went full junk food, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. and you know, I picked up Citizen Sleeper as well, which you recommended to me, which really, I got very, very into that for a couple of weeks, actually. So yeah, those have kind of been my titles. Very casual, retro, probably stuff I played as a kid that, you know, they have these remasters floating around. I never picked them up, and just trying to get back into them and be like, oh yeah, I remember how to do a kickflip on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
All right, so let's run through them. Like, I have never played. I think I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on PS1, maybe, like the very first one that came out, because it was just the talk of the town, you know, at that time. But like, how does it hold up? How is the Switch version of it?
It is so much fun. I think it is just a timeless. I think there's a reason that series never really. I think the only major gameplay change they ever had was you could get off. They made it kind of open world on PS2. You could get off your skateboard and walk around, and it had more of a storyline and all this kind of thing. But yeah, the arc, it's this very classic. It's actually based off the PS1 games, as far as I know. The gameplay is almost identical. Obviously, it just looks a lot better. But yeah, it really, really holds up. I mean, you have 2 minutes. You get your little arena, your little level, and it could be a school or an aircraft hangar or whatever. And you have 2 minutes, and every level has maybe 10 little quests. And in those 2 minutes, you have to try and like tick off one at least, or as many as you can. And after you've ticked off a certain amount of the quests over like repeat playthroughs, you'll unlock a new level or a new skater or something. And yeah, it's really just clever little game design, actually, because the layout of the levels is more or less the same. And, you know, the second level in the game is a high school map. And they just pack a lot into these very small levels. there's a there's an area with a closed door into a gym, and you've got to work out a way to open that door, but first you've got to knock all the fire alarms off of the walls, or you have to find certain letters somewhere, you have to get a high score or a combo, and then as you repeatedly go through it, it's almost like a sort of, you get with Hollow Knight or Metroidvania game, like you repeat things, and then you realize, oh, if I skateboard down this railing at the exact time that the first bell rings in the high school and finish by the end of the second bell, it opens a door into a new area where you have to complete another challenge. So I would actually highly recommend this game. It's like, especially for the Switch and a mobile game. If you've only got 2 minutes on the train or the bus, it was actually really fun. Much better than I expected it would be.
You know what? Like, this is a slightly funny story, right? So I do my Icelandic grocery shopping on this site called Heimkaup. And I just kind of occasionally will just, because they have everything. They have food and stuff. That's where I get all my food shopping since the pandemic. But they have electronics too. So I will occasionally just tap in Switch or PS5 or whatever, because they sell games. And I think once by accident, sometime last year, I was browsing games and I accidentally put Tony Hawk's Pro Skateboarder 1 and 2 for PlayStation in my basket. And I wondered why my shopping was slightly more expensive than usual. And then I found this game in my food shopping, and I just kept it. It's on my shelf now and I've never played it. So maybe I will, because I think I might be a closet skate game fan in a way, because, games that I like The Pathless or Solar Ash, are games that are all about movement. They're all about fast movement, and they have grinds and they have tricking, and you have to kind of keep the momentum going. And it seems like that's what the core gameplay of Tony Hawk's is, right? It's just to kind of keep going, keep tricking, keep kind of racking up the stuff. Is it like that?
Yeah, and just also, you can be as bad or as good at it as you want. You can still progress through the game. It's definitely got that skill cut. What's the saying? Easy to play, hard to master, or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think what I miss about it is I was playing these games, mate. I must have been 10 years old or something when the next gen Tony Hawk's games came out, Tony Hawk's Underground, and they had a full, I think it was the first game with a real story, a real narrative in it that was actually pretty compelling. It's you and I think you're in Queens or something, and you and your buddy who you grew up with are dreaming of being big skaters, and you go on tour together. This guy Eric Sparrow, he was the first video game antagonist I hated, because he's your best friend, and then he steals your amazing skate tape and puts his own name on it. And it was
not the skate tape.
Yeah, the big skate tape. And we had another one after that, the sequel, which had Bam Margera leading it, and it was all
Oh God!
It had all the Jackass characters in. It was kind of tying into this that weird cultural early 2000s moment of Jackass and skateboarding and everything, and they were all
That's
in the
why
game.
I haven't played it, honestly. It's the cultural associations that go with this game are sweaty Jackass gamer vibes. But yeah. I've got other friends that play it too and that recommend it to me, so maybe I will. It's on a disc, and my PlayStation 5 does have a disc, so I could pop it in any day. I mean, Tony Hawk's himself is just kind of a wholesome skater dad, from what I can tell. And this 1 and 2 remake thing is definitely just him skateboarding around. There's no funny business. But now you're bringing it back into John territory now. It's a cozy skater dad game. Okay.
I think as a Switch game, I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much. If I was sat on my sofa on a big screen, would I sit there and play it for longer than 10 minutes? Probably not. But I think when I was on a 3-4 hour train journey, it was just very digestible fun. So yeah, I'd recommend it for a Switch, definitely. And if you've got the game on your PlayStation, you might as well play it.
Yeah, I played one game like that last year. It was Rollerdrome. I don't know if you heard about this one, but that's a Ciaran game. It looks like Sable. It has this rotoscopy kind of art style to it with line drawings.
Is that the one based on Rollerball, the film?
It's not based on it, but I mean, not officially, but it clearly is. It's like a future sport. You have twin pistols like Lara Croft. You're on roller skates, and you go into an arena. It's a televised cyberpunk nightmare, and you are trying to shoot your way to freedom. And they put all these enemies around you, and it sort of it ranks up and up and up. So you start off with just a couple guys to shoot, but you have to trick to reload. So you trick, you reload, you come down again. You have to like find your path through the arena,
cool.
and like pick them off one by one, and then you have to do tricks to reload again and go on another attack run. So it's like a bit Tony Hawk, and it has that kind of gameplay you described, that progression where it's like do 10 tricks to unlock the next level. So it's a little bit Tony Hawk. It's a little bit of an intense shooter, and it looks like Sable. It might be a Ciaran game.
I'll check it out. Rollerdrome. Is it on Game Pass?
No, it's not. I think it might end up on Game Pass. It's on, I think, PlayStation and PC at the moment.
It seems like a Game Pass game. I'm starting to just not even bother buying games just because I feel like they all end up there.
Right. But one of the games that you got here was on my Games of the Year list, Citizen Sleeper. I have been recommending it to you because, as I said, like with Radical Art Review and kind of just knowing you and your range of interests, occasionally I'll play a game and be like, this is Ciaran stuff. Like Norco is very much Ciaran stuff. Citizen Sleeper felt like Ciaran stuff. It was just this interesting thought experiment game. Like Citizen Sleeper was a really interesting one. So I was very curious to hear what you thought of this one because I loved it. What did you make of it?
Citizen Sleeper. I think I downloaded it ages ago and I tried to play it and I just saw the text appear. And I was just like, no. And I left it. I left it for ages and ages and ages. And then one night, I don't know, I just picked it up and I just felt like I was in the mood for it. I think it's a game you have to be in the mood for that kind of atmosphere and all that. And yeah, I picked it up and it's a very compelling, interesting game. I mean, the gameplay loop is very simple. You know, you're on your little space station and you've got a certain amount of dice rolls every day to make narratively impactful choices, I guess, before the day runs out or we have to sleep. And yeah, I think I don't know how much spoilers I can get into it, but I think from the start there is like a clear imperative for this character, which is that you are either going to die because you're going to run out of a specific medicine for physiological reasons of who you are as a cyborg, and the fact that someone is pursuing you like a mercenary or a hitman or something. I felt like when those story arcs were in this game, I was so into it, and one night I ended up staying up till like 4 a.m. I just couldn't get away from the loop. In one of these games, I was like, one more loop, one more day, and then yeah, it kind of wrecked my work day the next day. But I think once I got past those two or three main story arcs, then I was just a guy on a space station, and then I lost interest.
Right, those are the like the early urgent drives. The game has drives. And new drives are introduced, and your first drive is like get medicine because you're going to die, find somewhere to sleep, find food because you will starve. And so you do have this very urgent set of drives at the beginning, but it does introduce new drives as you go on. I'm really interested that you got like fiercely addicted to Citizen Sleeper, because I love that feeling. That's like one of the best feelings when you're like in the flow of a game and it just has you in its clutches.
Yeah.
But it really does go places. Like I would be curious to see what you think, because like, without wishing to give spoilers away, there's lots of multiple endings to that game. And there are multiple ways to play it as well. Like, if you get an ending that you're not happy with, you can just kind of go back to your last save file and continue and sort of chalk off that ending. And say, like, that's not the ending that I want. That ending doesn't feel right. So you can explore them and then continue. And you can find an ending that feels right to you and then stop. Like, I think the game kind of invites you to say, this is the ending that I've chosen as like canon for me, but you can just go through them all to the end, and then the game just kind of runs out. Like you do your dice rolls and grow mushrooms and like talk to the noodle guy and whatever, and you can just play it forever. But there's no more story to be had, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting thing about that game, is that you can find the outcome that you desire, or find the one that feels right to you, if you know what I mean. It does go to some really interesting places. I hope that you give it another swing, because I was really, really happy with where that game went in the end.
I mean, I think, like, obviously there's a lot of politics in that game. There's a lot about, I think with the new expansion, they just added exploring, like, these refugees who've just arrived on the ship. There's a section with these people, these, like, weird old mushroom people who've kind of created, like, a anarchist co-op, like, in this, like, green waste area. And all of that was really cool. I think I just after an
Did you get that far? You got to Greenway?
Yeah, I got to Greenway. I think I even got past most of Greenway.
Man, you got deep if you got to Greenway.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah.
And then, I sort of peeled off after that. I was just like, yeah.
Well, I'm going to suggest to you, like, I know that you're probably not going to have time and not do it, but like, there's been like 3 chapters of DLC. There's like Flux, Refuge, and then one more to come. And I played the first 2, and I kind of wish that I'd waited for the third one to drop, because they are 3 parts of one story. And I think it would be they're like 2 hours each or whatever. And I think if to play them as a trilogy would be like a whole little extra like section of Citizen Sleeper. I kind of wish that I'd waited, but maybe when the last DLC drops would be the time to revisit it.
Yeah.
But we both also played Pokemon. You are, I believe, someone who's been playing Pokemon. Like, I had a weird story with Pokemon, like a weird history with Pokemon, because I played Zelda, I played Mario, I played Metroid, and I think of them as like the pillars of Nintendo. And then while I was like not playing Nintendo games, Pokemon happened, Animal Crossing happened, and those are like definitively the commercial pillars of Nintendo now.
Yeah.
Like, my poor little Metroid is like no longer such a big deal. But I think that for a lot of people, Pokemon is like this nostalgic childhood game, and people have been playing them forever, and they keep coming out. And I just missed all of that shit. So I've never played one until this Christmas. It was my first ever Pokemon game.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what? I think I want something cozy and simple. Nintendo, it's Christmas. And so I got Pokemon Arceus. So I had my first Pokemon experience this Christmas, and I'm still playing it. But you played Pokemon Scarlet, is that right?
Yeah, so that's the one that just came out in December, I think. December. And like all Pokemon games, is a twinned game. So you, based on the legendary Pokemon that is in the game, you either have a Scarlet. Oh, I don't even know what the other one was. Blue.
Violet.
Violet, there we go. It's always a color of some kind. Weirdly,
unless it's a gemstone.
Unless it's a gemstone, yeah, but they're basically colors as well, aren't they? I mean, Emerald is just green. But I think the first one ever. I think my first console was a Game Boy Color. I remember it very vividly, and it was a Pikachu Game Boy. It was like a yellow Pokemon Game Boy, and it had a little picture of Pikachu where you had that the red light would light up when it was on. That was Pikachu's cheek, and it would be like him kind of charging this. And I think my first couple of games were like, I think I had Super Mario Brothers. I had this weird Indiana Jones RPG that I don't know where that came from or who made that. And I remember going to the video rental store near me, and it was called Videodrome. Now I'm an adult and I've seen that film. I've realized that the guy running that place was probably a weirdo. But it was called Videodrome, and you could rent Game Boy games. And I remember renting Pokemon Yellow, and it was like, I think the second it was like the first Pokemon game, Red or Blue, but they'd added Pikachu to it, and it was yellow. And I remember playing that to death, and I remember renting it out, playing it, and then we'd have to take it back when the rental period ended, and then I'd rent it again. I think I rented it like 5 times, and I got to know this game a lot. And I think this is the iconic one, the really old ones. It's kind of top-down 2D, Lavender Town, all those classic creepy soundtracks and everything that you hear remixed these days. So I haven't really played them since that, I don't think. I think maybe like Pokemon Stadium or something on GameCube, but not really until this one. So I've also had a big gap. I think my gap is different to yours in that I played this when I was a kid, basically like 5 years old. And I think playing Pokemon Scarlet is quite interesting because the gameplay has fundamentally not changed since 1998. Basically, like you're still a 10-year-old in like weird Pokemon land, and it seems like the society has nothing better to do than play with animals. And like, you get to 10 and they're like, get out of the house. You're now of age where you can just roam freely throughout the land and like get into battles. And that hasn't really changed, but the difference is now is of this open world. And I think Scarlet is the first one with an actual true open world. I think Arceus had it a bit, right? I didn't play it, but I heard it wasn't a completely seamless, like, map or something. Yeah.
Right. So I've had some interesting conversations about Arceus with people because it is my first Pokemon game, and apparently it's a pretty unusual place to start because it is the first Pokemon game that has deviated from that formula that you're talking about kind of ever. It's open world, but it's split into regions. Each of the regions is like a little mini open world hub. And the start of the game is really funny because you seem to have some kind of experience where God gives your soul like a mobile phone. And then you like land on this planet having fallen through a rift with a mission from God to go and collect all of the Pokemon. And your phone is like your little UI that has your inventory and Pokédex. And you're tasked with going out into the world and cataloging all of the Pokemon. And in this game, everyone is scared of Pokemon. They don't really understand them. But there are also tribes in this world that worship them as gods, basically. And I get the feeling, I mean, I think that this is known, but I think that this game is like a prequel to the Pokemon series, and it's supposed to be like the first ever Pokédex or something like that. But so all you have to do basically is run around the world, catch them again and again and again. And if you catch 5, then something unlocks. And if you evolve 2, then something unlocks. And then if you see like a combat move, you get like a little checklist, like we were talking about, that Tony Hawk progression. Just so you have loads of little missions relating to every Pokemon. And when you unlock them all, then good things happen. And the aim of the game is literally just to unlock find all the Pokemon, fight all the Pokemon, catch all the Pokemon, evolve all the Pokemon.
Got to catch them all.
It's super nice. Like you just chill around the world. Like there is a story to it, but it's so light. It's like your boss man, you've been hired into the Pokemon photography union or whatever the hell it is, says, okay, now you have to go over here. We've had like one that's gone mental. And you seem special. Can you go and calm it down? So you have to go and calm down this mental Pokemon. And it's like the Poke Gods or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But my experience of playing it has been very much that like it's a game that I can play before bed. And it doesn't really matter if I'm paying attention. I have a marker on a map. I run around. I photograph Pokemon and fight them or like catch them. And it's just a really nice time. But it's definitely lacking like a thread, like a real drive. Like I feel absolutely no compulsion to see credits or to like get to the end of the story. It's more just like a game to tune out to, but as such, it's like a really good one.
I mean, I think what made the original Pokemon, when I say original, I mean, you know, the Game Boy ones, the old ones, is that they had so much folklore around them because this was a time when if you wanted a walkthrough, you had to usually go to the back of a PlayStation magazine or a gaming magazine, write in your name and your address in your terrible 6-year-old handwriting and post it off. And then someone might post you back a thing, or you'd have to ring a helpline and ask them, oh, I'm stuck in this bit of the game and get me through. So I remember the original Pokemon games having this weird enigmatic folklore around them, like playground folklore of like, I remember someone telling me in the school playground, they were like, if you had Mewtwo in the game, it's like big baller, mega Pokemon, the big boss, most powerful one or whatever. And I think it only had Mew in the game, not Mewtwo, but the film had come out and Mewtwo was in it. This guy in the playground, I was like 6 years old, he was like, if you go home, there's a truck near Lavender Town, and if you walk into that truck and you turn around on the spot 6 times, then up, down, right, and then you drop a pebble or something, then you'll find Mewtwo in the back of the truck. And I did this for hours, like trying to find this lorry with this, and it was complete bullshit. It never existed. You had other things, like, I don't know if some of the earliest creepypastas are set in the original Pokemon game in Lavender Town. The idea is Lavender Town's a very creepy area where you go to this ghost tower of ghost Pokemon. It has that music. It's like dun 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 dun, dun like creepy tunes. And there's all these creepypasta on the internet about like how people got like dead kids like trapped inside Lavender Town, and they're still in there, and like in like hacked versions of the game, there's like the real ghosts of people in there, and there was this thing missing number, which was like a glitch, and they were like, this is like the demon glitch Pokemon. So when playing this, it was a very enigmatic, like mysterious game that had a lot of this mystery had no basis in anything to do with the game. It was just kids making stuff up, basically. And I think with the new ones, I don't know how much there's going to be of that. We live in a different age now where, you know, you can just Google a problem and there isn't quite as much of this, I guess, folk like fantasies around your games where, you know, everything's through playing telephone or whatever and people telling each other what my friend told me. So yeah, it's quite interesting coming back to it as an adult and being like, oh, okay, this is literally just a game where you got to catch them all.
Right, and you can just Google all of the final forms of all of your Pokemon anyway. I was listening to another podcast where someone was talking about the new Pokemon games, and one of the hosts said when picking the starter, the first thing that they did was to Google all of what they become and then choose the one where they like the final form the most rather than picking one and then finding out, if you know what I mean. So I think you're right. Like, you know, of course, like internet, just the acceleration of information means that mystery is harder to find in a way. I think NoClip actually did like a really good series about this called Rediscovering Mystery, the NoClip documentary crew. And they went and talked to like the maker of The Witness, and they went and talked to a whole bunch of different game developers about how, like, is it possible to get that sense of adventure that you're thinking about, that you're talking about now, rather. It's a really good documentary series, actually. Like, the way that people play games over time has definitely changed. But as someone that missed the boat on Pokemon, it was really fun to dip a toe in the water this year, or last Christmas, rather, for the first time.
Yeah, I think there's just this thing of, I don't know, aside from the fact you start that game, and your one, Arceus, sounds very cool. That sounds like a fresh take on an old classic. But this one is just basically, you're 10 and you're going to Pokemon Hogwarts, whether you like it or not. And then you're going to go and do go to the gyms, beat the gym masters. And it doesn't have the mystery, but maybe this is just old man shouts at cloud territory. Like, maybe the 6-year-olds of today are just as, you know, compelled by Pokemon Arceus and Pokemon Scarlet. But I think there's definitely this idea. The thing about it is just because of how low res it was and how old it was and how kind of clunky these things were. Like, they had a sense of the haunted digital ruins. You know, it felt like there were things in this game that, in those old games, that shouldn't have been there and were there if you just looked long enough. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting seeing it very polished now, basically.
Right. I mean, something that springs to mind actually about this, like, I have a couple of colleagues that have children. They have young children and they work in games. And so they observe their children's experience of games. And so if they've got like a 4-year-old or 6-year-old, it seems that they're all playing Roblox games now. My colleague, one of my colleagues, has a couple of daughters of those ages, and he watches them playing just to see what they're enjoying and just to check that the games are okay and everything. And he was saying that, like, there were games in Roblox where, you know, the kind of checklists that we were talking about in Tony Hawk, where you have to do a bunch of stuff. You know what you're doing, you get progression, it keeps you hooked, it keeps you moving. He was saying that like his daughters just ignore all of that shit entirely. And if there is like a game where you're supposed to get coins and then collect all of the outfits or whatever, they won't do that. They will get one outfit and then make up a story and say, okay, so my name is Melanie and I'm dressed like this because I am from space. And then they'll just run around in the game as like Melanie from space, just role-playing within this game like a completely imagined game of their own. So maybe like finding your own fun in video games is just something that kids do and will always do.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's something I used to do back in my, you know, the spring of my youth.
All right, so we played a bit of Pokemon, you played a bit of Tony Hawk's, you played Citizen Sleeper. There's one more game that I played across the holidays that I think is worth talking about, because I think, I don't know, you might like it as well, actually. It's a Game Pass game.
I think I started playing it.
It's High on Life. Have you tried out High on Life?
Yes, I have. I installed it maybe last week, and gave it a go, and it is a hoot.
It is a real hoot. I went into this one so skeptical, That kind of, the South Park style of humor where it's like loads of people shouting stuff in funny voices is like the worst thing I can think of, and I'm absolutely not into it. And so I was thinking, okay, this game where the gun talks to you is going to be a nightmare. But within the first hour of it, like, it just got me. I laughed so much. The humor is sharp. It's really, really funny. I love that it plays with the fact that it's a video game. So the gun will, I've talked about this before, but like there are moments where you are presented with someone who is attacking you, but they are, like a little octopus or whatever. So you've got this stupid little octopus that is attacking you in the game, and it's saying like, get out of my house. And all you can do in the game really is shoot. And so eventually you pull the trigger to try and shoot it out of your way. And the gun is like, what are you doing? Are you a psycho? I'm not going to shoot this octopus. You're in its house. Like, you're the one with the problem, buddy. And so you're just sitting there, and your gamer instincts have just been completely turned against you by the game. And I think it's so smart, and it keeps doing that again and again and again and again. What did you make of it? What did you make of this one? Because I think you're a little more familiar with the writers of this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, Justin Roiland, obviously, he's famously one of the writers of Rick and Morty. I don't know if he's the showrunner with Dan Harmon, who did Community. But Community, I was a massive fan of that show. I still am a fan of Rick and Morty. I think it's probably the showrunners of that show are aware that its fans are kind of annoying, douchey guys a lot of the time. But basically, this game plays like Justin Roiland famously can only do like 3 voices, maybe even 2, and the voice the gun has is literally just the voice of Morty. So when I'm playing this, and sometimes Rick appears in it, like the same voice, obviously a different character. So when I'm playing it literally just feels like I'm playing a Rick and Morty game where Morty got turned into a gun. And I don't know if that's canon, but in that show they can go into like parallel universes, and there's like a million different realities, and like I'm wondering if this might even just be
right within twist at the end.
Yeah, the canon of Rick and Morty is like there's a world where like Morty is a gun, because even the setup at the start with like the teenage brother and the older sister, that's the two of the main characters in Rick and Morty as well, and it's drawn so
Really? Are they actually characters from Rick and Morty?
It's not the same characters, but in the show, Morty is like a younger teenage boy, and his older sister, Summer, they get similar dynamic in the way those two interact. I mean, this was obviously different characters, but the same kind of setup, they're just like, oh, we're brother and sister in like a suburban house, and like the world's ending because aliens are here. So it almost felt immediately familiar getting into it. I think the gameplay I had the biggest problem with. Just got bored of like blapping bugs in the head. I've just had my FPS days. But I was with my girlfriend was here, and I was playing it. I was like, oh, do you want to watch something? She was like, no, you game, carry on. I'm going to read Jonathan Franzen. Like that big book you like left at my house. Crossroads.
It's really good. It's really good. It was too big to put in my luggage when I stayed with you, so I left it to you. I bequeathed it to you. It's a really good book.
Yeah, my girlfriend's reading it, and she's like so into it. She's like, oh, this book's getting really intense, and I'm just there like 3 feet away, like blapping aliens with like this stupid little Justin Roiland voice. And then later I switched.
Did you feel like a gamer boyfriend? That sounds like a very gamer boyfriend moment.
Yeah. I mean, I switched to a flight simulator after that, and she was like, yeah, this one's a lot calmer, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's the vibe. You found it.
But yeah, it's definitely funny, and I haven't got that far into it. I think I've just got the Knifey or whatever.
Yeah, Knifey, oh my god.
Knifey's a psychopath. But yeah, I mean, the graphics are cool. The art style's just a bit batshit, which I like.
Music's pretty good too. It's got this like vapor wavy electronica in the background. Love the color palette. I like retro sci-fi generally, and this has like a real strong retro sci-fi feel to it. Like ray guns and like flying cars and all that stuff. It plays into, I think even in the bedroom that you have in the game as the player character, there are loads of posters on the walls, and they're like pastiche of 80s movies like The Running Man and stuff. it feels very well constructed, and like it's got a pretty clear vision. Like if you take away I think if you were to take away the silly humor, you'd have a solid game. Like it plays like Metroid Prime. You have like a hook shot, and you're jumping and platforming, shooting, switching weapons, solving puzzles. Like it feels like a pretty solid first person platforming shooter, but it's got that great extra element of the comedy on it as well. I'm pretty impressed by it, more than I thought I would be, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think with Justin Roiland and that kind of whole school of comedy is that it has a bad habit in terms of its fandom of like attracting kind of this macho guys who think they're like smarter than everyone else because they get the humor or whatever, I don't know. But these guys as writers tend to always manage to just about elude that and not fall into stereotypes and kind of keep doing fresh things. And I think I probably felt a little bit skeptical as well before I played it, but so listen, it's just the self-awareness of these people as writers makes a lot of it more palatable and a lot easier to get along with, because it's, I don't know, these guys kind of realize how dumb a lot of this stuff is, and that's where a lot of the humor comes from, I guess.
Okay, so one of the things that we had meant to do and didn't get to was that during the Games of the Year season, you and I were going to have a little Games of the Year chat, and we talked about doing it. It didn't quite come together, but we can sort of sneak in a little bit of Games of the Year talk now. I think that you played a lot of stuff that was seemingly like last year to you was a comfort gaming year, where you played a lot of nostalgic stuff and not that many fresh ones. But it seems like the two that you've mentioned to me, number one was Elden Ring, which you and I talked about at length, and I'm kind of curious about how your adventures went after that, actually. And the other one was Stray. So, I don't know. Let's start with Elden Ring. Like last time you and I talked about it, we were still in Limgrave. We had done a little bit of Caelid, and we'd beaten, I think, like Margit and Godric, and so we were right at the start of the game. It hadn't been out that long last time we talked about it, but we still managed to talk about it for 2 hours. And I was wondering if, like, now that you've had more time with it and you've gone deeper into it, like, has your opinion on it developed? Like, what's your current take on Elden Ring?
I think Elden Ring has to be my game of the year, because if it isn't, I've invested a lot of time into something that is shit. So it has to be good, otherwise I am a stupid. So that is my view on Elden Ring. It's either the most genius thing I've ever touched, or I've wasted a year of my life. And one of those things cannot be true. So it must be the other one, which is that is a work of art. And that is my review.
But I'm actually curious about how it went for you, because I think at the start it was your first proper Souls-like, and it was my first proper Souls-like as well.
Yes.
But you have gone much deeper into it than I did. I think I got to Radahn, and I defeated the boss of Raya Lucaria. I forget her name, like Melania or something.
Yes.
No. That's not Melania, that's Donald Trump's wife.
Rennala, Queen of the Moon.
Rennala, Queen of the Moon, defeated her as well. And as I understand it, I think you've always been on more of a quest to become the Elden Lord than I have. Like I've kind of been like, yeah, I'll try Elden Ring, sure. I'll see how far I get in it. And I got pretty far. I got 70 hours in the game, and I'm very happy with where I got to. And I think that there is probably in my future another run at Elden Ring, but you have since day one been like pretty driven to become Elden Lord. So I was wondering, how is your quest going? Where did you get to? What was it like? The later sections? I guess Altus Plateau, the capital, right? No spoilers after that. I'm up to the capital, but how has it been going? I'm
not gonna say any spoilers, but I'm gonna ruin your life a bit by saying those are not the later game stages. That is like the mid game. if
Surely
that,
not.
If
70 hours and I'm still in the mid game. Come on, man.
Yeah, not even close. It's been... Oh my god, I mean, what do you even say about it? I think I was thinking the other day about how I actually went to Limgrave because, again, like, I know, my girlfriend's never gamed, she was here, she was kind of taking an interest in what I was playing on Xbox. And she's a big fantasy nut, so I was showing her Elden Ring, and she was like, oh my god, this game looks incredible, like, who made this, what is this art style? And I went back to Limgrave and I was kind of showing her some of the locations. And I was in that first area. I remember you asking me, how do I get past this weird first camp of guards? Like, how do you stealth kill? How do you do this stuff? And you know what? I had this moment. I was in this area again. And I just walked through it, just like one-shotting everyone in there. And I was like, oh my god! Like, I was a scared little mouse once upon a time, and now I'm back here and like. This game punishes you so much you think you haven't made progress, but I get this far along, I'm like, you know what, I was a scared person then, and now I'm very brave, and it has taught me to be brave. I'm a brave, tarnished man. I don't know, I think there's that element of it, there's getting better at it, but the thing is you never really get better because it just keeps getting harder.
Right, this is what I discovered. It's like riding the waves of like... whether you are a little bit over-leveled or a little bit under-leveled is the difference between hitting a brick wall or wiping the floor with a boss first time. And I got to a point in, I think because, you know that guard camp that you've talked about?
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but it's at the bottom of Stormvale Castle. I think it's called Keepside Camp or something like that. And it was the first time I'd ever tried to engage with Dark Souls combat. And I was like, okay, I'm going to use this camp to discover whether or not I can play Dark Souls. And so I walked around the camp, crept around the camp, learned how to backstab, learned how to parry, learned how to counter, and eventually, after like hours and hours and hours of just chipping away and dying and chipping away and dying, I was leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. And I think that just doing that completely bizarre thing to do in an open world game, just to focus down on the first tiny little moment with a couple of random guys and to try and learn the game. But I think doing that, I went through a lot of levels because I was, you level up all the time. As long as you collect your souls, you level up all the time. And so I think like I was over leveled for a lot of the game that I played. And so I was able to kind of smash past a lot of bosses, and the fear factor left me. And I felt like in control of Elden Ring. I was like, yes, I can do this. And then it kind of caught up with me. I started to progress through the map. And I get the feeling that Elden Ring and Souls games, or probably more Elden Ring because of the open world format, it catches up with you. And like what level you are when you reach a certain boss, like combined with your ability level, means everything. You know what I mean? And so I think I kind of fell off it when I got to a point where the levels caught up with me, and I was like, okay, I'm just getting smashed again. Like, It's a pretty crunchy system in a way. It's like, I think that one of my big criticisms of Elden Ring, there's two criticisms I have of it. One is that the story is delivered pretty badly. I still don't really know what's going on in that game. And the second is that I almost can see the spreadsheet behind the combat. And it's like the amount of damage I'm doing, the amount of damage I'm taking, the amount of flasks I have, it feels very mathematical in a way. And so all of this idea of like, you can learn Elden Ring and you can like master it and your skill level will improve. I think that's true, but it's such a small part of the picture. And it feels more like you have to just get to a level at which it's possible for you, if you know what I mean. So it feels a little mathematical in a way.
I mean, it definitely, I mean, this has 2 points there. It's interesting, earlier we were talking about like intrigue and mystery in games, and like getting this far into the game, I definitely feel like even in the last 6 hours of play, there's stuff in this that someone would tell you in the playground and you'd be like, whoa, I'm going to go find out, because it's so enigmatic, it doesn't give anything away. And I almost think it's trying to get back to that a little bit. It's just been like, you know what, like, we're going to confuse you and make you intrigued and curious.
Right,
and
so you think the vagueness of the story is actually somewhat intentional. I mean, I guess it is the antithesis of like God of War Ragnarok, where every chapter ending is a big dramatic moment where the point is really forced home. And Elden Ring doesn't have chapters. It doesn't force anything home. It's all kind of in the ether. It's almost 100%. It's almost diametrically opposite in terms of storytelling to a mainstream Sony game where the story is everything and it's delivered clearly and no one is left behind. Elden Ring is like screeching off into the sunset and doesn't care if anyone keeps up almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely feel like you're a stranger and an invader in this place. And I think realistically speaking, if you did arrive in the lands, say you, John, landed in the lands between, people aren't just going to hand you a main storyline, you know? You're like, you're a stranger here. Like, there's centuries of story, and you got to pick that apart. And I basically realized that, and I'm going to try not to do any spoilers here, but basically a lot of people, NPCs you encounter early on, all have quests that lead all the way to the end of the game in their own way. So all the people in the Round Table Hold have their own quest line you can follow that isn't very obvious. Even if you begin with the deathbed companion, that woman Pia who gives you a hug.
Right. I don't know what the hell is going on with her. Honestly, she only ever gave me a hug, and it powered me down. So yeah. I like never took another hug from her.
I only just discovered at hour like 90 of the game that she has a quest line, and I am on her quest now.
How? Does something happen?
She gives you a thing that you give to someone else, and then they're like, whoa.
She never gave me a thing.
Yeah, I think it's a later thing.
Okay. Okay, we're back to Playground Whispers, aren't we? I see your point. She gives
you a thing, there's a thing, but then she'll tell you, you know, that, I don't know, you can basically, if you want, you can finish the game from when you get to the Royal Capital and you beat the boss in there, you can complete the game like from within a couple hours from that point if you wanted to. But I don't know. That's the point I was at. So basically, I played this game in 3 stints. I had one big chunk at the start, then I left it for a few months. I had a second leg in like summertime-ish. That's when I made a lot of real progress. And then I got burned out again because I think it's just, do I want to turn on my Xbox and feel a bit scared and anxious?
Right.
I think that's what it comes down to.
Right. Yeah, you and I are the same in this respect. I think I was all in on Elden Ring. I was like bashing through bosses and on my way, basically, full momentum, just plowing through this, and was taking out bosses pretty well. I think the first time that I used a summon in the entire game was Radahn, where some like overpowered like fellow human being came in and just kind of trashed him for me because I was just bored of that fight. But I went on holiday and I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to play Elden Ring for 2 weeks. I'm going on holiday. And when I got back, I sat down and picked up the controller and I just thought, nah. And I just put the controller down and I was like, this feels like work. This feels like the style, the world of Elden Ring is so hostile and so unforgiving and so obscure that like coming back in off holiday and settling back into life, I was just like, I don't think I need that atmosphere in my life. You know what I mean? So I think I ended up just playing other things. It is funny that Elden Ring is so oppressive in a way. Like I like that game. It was in my games of the year list, and so I know that I'm picking at it now. But I think it is interesting to pick at it because it had such a wall of acclaim. I think it's interesting that you and I come to this with like a kind of a slightly fresh perspective and no games media dogma really. And so it's not like it's not in that world. Our discussion is not in that world. We're just talking about the game and our experience of it, right? But I think the oppressive atmosphere of that game is a lot if you are a gamer who clocks out of work and comes and sits down and you're like, okay, I want to, like, how is what I'm about to play going to make me feel? And it's kind of interesting that like Elden Ring makes you feel anxious. It makes you feel like you are maybe not good enough or underpowered. It makes you feel intimidated and it makes you feel confused. And those are all, I guess this is, Miyazaki has talked about this, hasn't he? He's talked about how the games are supposed to give people personal growth and they are supposed to make you feel like you can overcome things and they are ultimately supposed to be empowering. But when I come to game, it's like I don't need therapy. I don't need Miyazaki to give me therapy, make me feel like I'm capable of anything. Like I feel fine in my life. And so when I sit down to game, I'm not sure that's what I want. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think it's part of the reason I've been playing so many junk food games like Warzone and stuff is just because I just needed a break. I just needed to do stuff. But I've realized coming back to it in probably the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe, not even, maybe a week, I don't know, recently. It's like I sit down and that title music comes on, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah, tiring, man.
Hell, here
tiring.
we go. But it's never ever, and I thought the same about yoga. You never regret it, and it's never ever as bad as you think it's going to be.
Oh my God, you're so right. I always say this to people about the pool in Iceland. I'm like, you can never be bothered to go because you have to like get your kit, walk there, like get changed, be in the showers, get in the pool, get out. It's such a hassle, but you never regret it. And you are right. Like there's never been a time that I regretted playing Elden Ring. It's just getting started. How is Elden Ring like exercise? Like, how is that possible?
I don't know. I think it commands all of your attention. Probably is a big part of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's the lore and the story. You just it becomes a lot denser as you go on. I think, and you just pick up a lot of it through osmosis. And like, I don't know if I can talk about Gold Mask or any of the characters.
I met him. He was standing. I was dying to meet him. He's in the intro. He's the most interesting looking character of them all. And I was like, I can't wait to meet Gold Mask and see what the fuck is his deal, basically, this sun-faced weirdo. And I finally met him, and he was standing on a peninsula, like a broken bridge, and he was pointing at the Erd tree. And I went over to him, and I was like hitting the button, like, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? He said nothing. He was a mute character pointing at the Erd tree. So he never said a word to me. And I was like, oh, that was the sun guy, I guess.
He has a whole quest line.
How does it happen? Do you have to give him a hug?
So, I mean...
Does it just happen? So you've told me about 2 character quest lines that did not trigger for me. There's the hug lady and sunface guy.
Again,
is it just a matter of like, is there some kind of chain of events that is set in motion that I just haven't triggered?
Have to be in the round table hold for a lot of this. There's a guy in the round table hold. He's got a big piece of wood around his neck, a weird kind of monk.
The priesty weirdo.
Priesty monk weirdo. Yeah, basically, like, and without going too much into spoilers, he basically decides one day that he's had enough with the round table hold, and he's like, oh, I've heard of this guy, Gold Mask, who sounds like he might be the Messiah, so I'm going to go and find him. And you have to like help this weird priest guy find Gold Mask, and he becomes his like #1 disciple. And like,
okay, no more spoilers.
That's it.
But yeah, so the answer is basically, okay. Elden Ring does not tell you what to do. You get to choose what is interesting to you. You get to choose what you are doing. I have been choosing what I find interesting, progressing through the story in my own way, and I've missed the cues. And that to me, like, that could be taken 2 ways, right? Because I played that game pretty attentively and for a very long time, for literally 3 days of my human existence, if you count my hour count. I've been playing Elden Ring. 3 days of your life is not nothing. And I have been very attentive with it. And I've still somehow not managed to pick up the threads of what is required of me to progress the story. Like, how do you, like, as a critic, there is a part of me that is screaming, like, this is bad design. Like, it was not apparent enough that I was supposed to do these things in order to get the outcomes that I want. Like, I want to know the story of Sunface Guy, and the game has not led me there. And then, of course, there's the other side of the conversation that we've just been talking about, which is like, but what about the sense of mystery? What about the sense of exploration? What about the sense of just finding things? And I guess it comes down to this kind of philosophy of game design thing. I guess I'm revealing myself a little here. I like to feel like I had a fair shot.
Yeah.
At like finding the outcomes that I've deserved from 3 days of my life. And I'm not sure that Elden Ring gave me the cues that I needed. Like I didn't know what was important. You know what I mean?
I think there's an argument to be made that like a lot of games will hold your hand and a lot of games will take you through the story. And if you want that, you can go and have that. But these guys are not interested in giving you that. Don't look for that in this. I think one thing that's interesting is that with the story, a lot of the time, it's little tiny little details that like come back to you 10, 15, 20, 30 hours later and suddenly make sense. Like, some NPC will give you an object as a thank you for doing a weird little thing in like hour 10 of the game. And then in hour 70, you meet someone who was looking for that thing, and then you give them that thing, and then all of a sudden a whole quest line opens up, So it's just like it's almost like needle in a haystack storytelling. It's just like they've drawn a straight line in the plot from like start to finish, and then basically torn it all up into tiny little shreds of paper and just scattered it through the land and given you no linear way of solving that. You just have to go and find the needles and like hold on to them for ages in the hope that one day you'll have a little thread to stick the needle on and like sew it together.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, the visual design never gets boring though. And that's probably my biggest praise of it. Like the design never gets old. They don't run out of ideas. I'd say maybe a little bit, maybe there's a couple of areas that are like earlier areas, but a bit of a remix or something of them. But overall, like it's constantly fresh design, you know, the way they've designed it and the way it looks, the atmosphere is so varied and so different in every place. And so all the enemies and the characters and obviously you do get some bosses that repeat or something like that. But yeah, there's still places in the game that are just jaw dropping. You think, an hour 100, how can I be discovering a whole new region with a completely different weather system and like the way things look and rules and laws and yeah, I think the difficulty is probably not that big of a game. If you were amazing at it, if you were like an incredible Dark Souls player who could just boss every encounter you were in, you'd probably complete the game in like 30 hours or something.
I've heard 90 has been like a lot of people's first run credits.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm now at the stage where I can complete the game. It is clear to me that there is probably within my game, 4 or 5 potential endings I could choose from. I know that 2 of them I could do right now that I'm not that keen on. I don't want to end it yet. And I think they'd be boring. I don't like the characters guiding those bits. So I'm pursuing 2 little ones that I think might take me to the throne of Elden Lord.
Wow, you got so much further. You got so much further into it than me, honestly. Like, I couldn't tell you right at the point that I'm at, like, what the fuck is even happening? Like, in terms of like choosing endings and like, I've missed something here, or some part of me has not been able to receive what Elden Ring is trying to serve me. If you know what I mean. I feel like a little lost in that world. And it was on my Games of the Year list, so I know I'm being very negative about it. And I think this happened last time we talked about the game. I think that you are right. I think that it is a wild, like fantastical vision of a game. And the visual design of it is incredible. The gothic craziness of it and the horror, like the macabre horror of it all. And there is mystery. Like you come into some crypt and like the boss might be... Did you fight the little fucking ghost snail thing? Like there was this ghost snail that I had to fight that kept like bringing up the bosses. Okay, I'm just gonna... I was on a good thread there, but I've been derailed like by myself. Like there was this boss where you come into a room and like these massive guys come out of the ground and they come at you and you beat them, and then another one comes out of the ground and you beat it and you're like, okay, like this is like a series of bosses. This is pretty hard. Like this is more than I can handle. And then eventually I realized there's like a little ghost snail in the corner of the room, and that's the boss. And it's just like singing. And whenever it sings, another boss comes out of the ground, and they are just golems. So I've just been killing all of these golems. And I actually just had to kill the ghost snail, and I killed it with 3 hits. And the whole boss was just like a little confidence trick. And you know, there's another one where you come down and there's like these 3 crystal guys that break out of crystal and come for you. Like there is a constant sense of surprise, not only in the visual design, but in the bosses too. Like the things that they do, the status things they have, and just their grotesque forms and the way that they twist the gameplay is super, super, super cool. So I think that you're right. Like I see the vast imagination in the game. And just somehow it's like, I know it's there. I'm just not quite connecting with it fully. And I'm a little jealous of that in a way. Like I want to, but I don't know if it's just me and it. Like I feel like I'm breaking up with this game right now, but I don't know if it's me or the game. But something's not working here.
I mean, I'd probably have 3 tips. If you're going to go back to this in 2023, Elden Ring, I'd say number 1 is exhaust all dialogue with NPCs. If you meet someone, you talk to them, just talk to them again. Keep talking to them again and again and again. Sometimes I've had to press a prompt with an NPC 5 times for them to then just dump a load of lore on me. Sometimes you just got to literally annoy them into telling you things or giving you new clues. Then secondly would be like...
Is that past repeating dialogue? Is it after, like, if it starts to cycle back, I will stop because I'll think, okay, I've exhausted it.
No, sometimes you just got to keep going back to it. And then they'll tell you more. Like, there's one character who was just... They spoke, and it was mute. And I had to try 4 times. Then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, you won't leave me alone, will you? Okay, well, I'll tell you about this thing. I'd also say a lot of NPC quests, they give you little objects. There's a key items section in your inventory. It's called key items. Sometimes it'll be in key items. Sometimes it'll be a weapon or armor or something. But if someone gives you something, you should read the description on that. You should hang on to it because chances are there's another NPC somewhere in the game who wants that thing. And you're going to hold on to it and give it to them. And it'll open up a new chapter, I guess. And my final advice, if you want to get more into the story, is talk to everyone in the round table hold because they will mention something very, very minor. They want a thing or they have a thing to give and you got to, exchange a few things. And you will literally, I think there's 4 characters in that round table hold at the start of the game. And probably not, I haven't even got this far, but out of my game playthrough, I think 4 of them have now left the round table hold. So those people in that little weird room are going to take you places, basically. And yeah, that would be my advice. If you want to get back into it and you want to dig the lore and dig into the story, do those things. Just, chat shit, hold on to things and talk to everyone.
All right, good tips. Are you kind of determined? You've been determined to be Elden Lord since day one. Do you think you've said that you've got a couple endings open to you? Are you going to power through it? Do you think you're going to be Elden Lord?
I think I'm going to be the Elden Lord because I want to be. I think it was my destiny a little bit, and I think to have come this far. If you can overcome the first 10 hours of the game, you can beat the game, I think. Because the difficulty curve never actually gets harder. Like, maybe the bosses get tougher and you get tougher, but they're not going to be any more difficult than those first guys were in the camp when you were, like, underpowered. So if you can do the first 10 hours of this game, you can complete it, I think. I think that's my view. There's probably some crazy bosses in there you're going to have to work hours on, but you'll do it, I think. And I'm going to be the Elden Lord, and it's going to be a great day, I think. But now I've got a bit of a grip on the lore. I don't want to just choose a bad ending. Like, I want a good ending, and I have a feeling, there's... Again, without getting too much of spoilers, there's different factions and different characters pulling you in different ways, and a couple of them are just arseholes, and I'm not interested in becoming the Elden Lord off their back. I'm going to do it with the good guys, so...
Okay, you're doing it the right way. You're going to be Elden Lord, but you're going to be Elden Lord the right way.
Yeah, exactly. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Well, like, funnily, like looking at like your other Game of the Year pick was such a different game, and after the conversation that we've just had, it's so interesting. Like, Elden Ring on my Games of the Year list came in at number 8, and there were lots of games above it, and it was for some of the reasons that we've talked about that it wasn't higher. Like, I loved the game, but I struggled to kind of get my fingernails into it in a way that really got me. And this other game is like, it's a lesser game in many, many, many ways. But in ways that matter a lot to me, it executed better. And it's a game that's been like pretty controversial in the gamer sphere, because it was up for a Game of the Year nomination at the Game Awards. And it's Stray. It's the cat game. It's the cute little cat game where you're a cat. Mm-hmm. You run around a sci-fi world. You experience a strange dystopian cyberpunk story. And it's an exploration game. It is very, very mellow. There are a couple chase sequences and a little bit of stealth, but for the most part, it's an extremely chill game. And it has really divided people in a way, but I was interested that this one landed with you and glad that it landed with you. And from what I understand from our talks, you finished it pretty quickly. Like, it got its claws into you, no pun intended. So tell me about your time with Stray.
Stray. Well, I think this was even one we previewed as a Game of the Year in 2021. This was in the preview episode. I don't even know if I was there, but I don't know. It turned out the hype was real. The hype was good. It was right. This was just a fun ride, wasn't it, Stray? I mean, firstly, I got a cat this year. I never had a cat. I got a cat in January. Treacle is her name. And so as a new cat owner, playing a cat game where you are a cat is something wonderful about that. Something joyful about just seeing how a cat would explore things, regardless of the fact the setting was very well delivered. You know, this kind of sad, lonely cyberpunk kind of place filled with lost robots who are slow, kind of have gained sentience, but not really enough to get them out of there. It was, it was a bit on rails. It wasn't the most free roaming kind of game, but I actually think that was kind of refreshing. You know, I think I'm actually of the opinion there are too many open world games now, and we should stop and go the other way. And Stray was a great way of doing this. It was like almost the level structure was similar to Tony Hawk's. It was like you have little levels, nice little magic puzzle boxes. You can wander through and you can explore that little space and then move on to the next one through a linear story. And, you know, getting back to basics on storytelling, I think is something Stray did really well. And it didn't feel like it was... I almost feel like some of these open world games, you know, like Ubisoft games or whatever, they hold your hand more than Stray did. They're technically less linear, they're open world games, but this is a more linear game that felt more like you had more freedom. And I don't really know why. It's quite paradoxical, but just the way you approach things or the way you looked around for things, or I don't know, it felt like your interactions with things that weren't main objectives were meaningful in a way that in a lot of open world games just feel like box ticking, you know, like fetch quests or something.
I think you're right about that. Like, I guess like a theme of our conversation generally has been like if Elden Ring doesn't hold your hand whatsoever and just kind of casts you free and says, go do it, gamer, go join the dots, go figure it out. Like, and Valhalla or something like that is basically like you have a, what do you call that little thing in a car that tells you where to go?
Compass. No, sat nav.
Yeah, sat nav. Like you're basically on sat nav for the entirety of Valhalla. It's like, okay, here is the pin, go there, kill some people. And now here is the pin, go there, kill some people. And now here is the pin. So whilst it is open world, you are right that it is intensely linear. And I guess Stray comes down closer to sat-nav in a way. But when I think about like the slums level of Stray, you know, at the start where you have to find the outsiders and there's only one left, the others have all gone wandering. And he tells you like, look for this symbol. And so you come out into the world, you look around and there is like a neon symbol with a graffiti face on it. And you have to make your way over there in this cat-like way, very enjoyable traversal. And then you get like a little book or whatever, and you come out of that window again, and you have to look around. You're like, okay, well, I have to find these people's houses, and apparently this is how they signify them, with these signs. And so it is required of you, like there is no pin marker in the map. It is required of you to explore the environment, to spot the symbol. And they're not hard to find, but even just the act of encouraging your intuition and curiosity, and that you have to look around to find them, is more than an Ubisoft game does. So I guess if we're looking at like this grand scale where Elden Ring is on one side, and like you said, it's like 100 needles in 10 haystacks, and then Valhalla is the sat-nav, and Stray is like closer to sat-nav, but there's enough required of you to actually engage your brain. And I enjoyed that. It was a mellow time, but it definitely did encourage me to, you know, get into gear and like find the things I had to find, in a way that I felt really like, in a way that I felt shepherded me through, but in a way that I enjoyed.
I mean, I feel like a lot of these AAA games these days have so much environment, but so little like environmental design. And there's something to be said in a game like Stray where of having to learn the rules and the structure of a place in a pretty, in a contained but pretty free form way. They're like, right, find these 5 things. Like, you're going to have to learn like what's up and down in that place. You're going to have to learn, and you're going to work that out for yourself. Whereas I feel like, and I don't just want to beat on Ubisoft games. There's a lot of games that are guilty of this, but for these big, massive games, open world games, they don't really have that. They don't have environmental puzzles a lot of the time. They just have environments. They just have big environments. But is that a smart, like, intelligent way of designing like a space for someone to engage with? I don't really know. I think Breath of the Wild did it very well, and there's a few notable examples, but Stray kind of, it really, really reminded me of like Valve games like Portal or something, like the way, it's linear, but it feels more freeform because you have to learn the space and you have to learn it on your own terms and get to grips with it. And I think there's something that's probably trickier than just generating a big open green landmass and sticking a bunch of bases and puzzles and NPCs in. I don't know. I think it's just very compact, kind of smart design. And even though it was only a short game, I think that left I remember that game vividly. Some of those sequences much better than I'll remember parts of the like 120 hours I spent on Valhalla. They're much more memorable for it because you have to learn things in a deep way rather than in a very broad way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Stray did something a bit special. People don't give it enough credit. The fact that you can move through that game relatively unencumbered and always know where you are going, without the map markers and with just visual cues and with just visual game design to lead you there, whether that is a light, whether that is a set of air conditioners at the side of a building that all have ribbons flowing from them that catch your eye and make you think, oh, maybe I should go that way. Like, I think that there is a mastery of environmental design in Stray that made it a very chill experience to glide through. But that gliding took a lot. It took a lot from them, a lot of thought and a lot of talent from them to make the game feel that way. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. No, I hope they get a sequel, to be honest.
Right, Stray DLC. Let's have it. But let's like finish off by talking about games that are coming up. Are there any games in the calendar? You mentioned Breath of the Wild. Obviously, you're a big Breath of the Wild fan, and Tears of the Kingdom is coming. Like, have you got any hopes and dreams for Tears of the Kingdom? And like, what else is on your mind?
I hope Tears of the Kingdom just does. It should just completely mess with Breath of the Wild. I want something like. What was the one? There was Ocarina of Time, and then there was the scary one with the moon.
Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I want them to just fully Majora's Mask it. Like, let's just like whatever you thought this was going to be. Let's just like mess with you and do it something completely different. That's a bit freaky and a bit out there, and we can get away with it because you've all paid so much money for the first game.
Do you think it will? Like in reality, because like Nintendo are probably the most unpredictable of the main players. Like, Sony is just doing what Sony is doing. Xbox is like trying to catch up, and Nintendo is out here making the Wii U and making the Wii with Wii Sports and like just changing it up constantly and making Majora's Mask right after Ocarina of Time. They do seem like the most wildcardish of them. Like, if anyone was going to just completely throw the formula out of the window, and I think it's built into their mission statement almost. There was like a Shigeru Miyamoto interview where they said to him, like, actually, I don't know if it was Miyamoto or if it was some other Nintendo employee, but it was implied that the Switch 2 would not be just another Switch. They said, innovation is what we do. And so that just leaves this huge question mark hanging on, like, you just never know with Nintendo.
No, I mean, the first teaser trailer that came out for Tears of the Kingdom before we knew it was called that, when it was just Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever, it looked like it was going to be a dungeon crawler, like everything looked underground. But then this new trailer came out and it looked like everything was in the sky. And I have no idea where it's going to be set. Like, the first Breath of the Wild trailer, you kind of, at least you knew where you were at. You're like, oh, cool, Zelda's doing an open world game. Like, it's going to be in a big open, like, I don't know what the mechanics of this are going to be. Is it going to be I don't know what the story is. I know it's going to be probably around the fall of the kingdom in the Breath of the Wild, but why is everything in the sky? Is there going to be flying mechanics like wind? I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. So that'll be great, probably, based on the past.
Right, and maybe like less of an incremental improvement, which seems to be what like Ubisoft go for, and a little bit what Guerrilla goes for with Horizon, games that I love and you love less. They incrementally improve upon the formula. It seems like Nintendo is not really interested in incremental improvement. It's interested in innovation, like true innovation. So you've kind of filled me with a little bit more hope than I had here, actually. Like, I think Tears of the Kingdom, you are right. It has caves, it has sky, it has verticality in a way that first game didn't. So it's super interesting to see what is going to become of it. I mean, we've seen some footage of Link, like, jumping upwards through floors, right? Where he kind of dives through stone. And we've seen some footage of him using time to wind something back. There's like little bits, there's little hints here and there. But maybe maybe you're right. If the theme is time, if Tears of the Kingdom is in fact the fall of Hyrule before Breath of the Wild, and the Zelda series does do that, it skips around the timeline of Zelda, then maybe time comes into play more. Yeah, fascinating. I can't wait. It's coming out like a couple weeks before my birthday, and it's like the big gamer pin in my calendar this year is Tears of the Kingdom for sure.
Yeah, I just think the annual release calendar model that Ubisoft kind of came up with and a lot of the studios followed is just a scourge, basically. I would actually, if a company like Ubisoft or EA or Sony just let their little studios have like 5 or 6 years to just work on a thing, they do much better. If they want to make money on a rolling basis, just do free-to-play games do like Fortnite, just release a new map and new unlocks every like couple weeks or months or whatever, that's how it should roll over. But yeah, I'm quite happy for Nintendo to just take their sweet time with this. I'm sick of rushed big budget games. We should just take it slow.
Right, and they kind of have. I mean, it's been kicked back a bunch of times now. I think we are going to get it in May, but I am very curious about it. But another game, I think I'm going to take a little bit of credit for your interest in this one, because one of the other games that you've got on your kind of looking forward list, I kind of bought you Christmas presents that were games for a couple of years in a row. I think one time it was Sayonara Wild Hearts, and then the next time it was Hollow Knight.
Yes.
And I remember talking to you on chat during your time with Hollow Knight in the early stages, and you sounded like me playing Elden Ring. You were like...
it sounded exactly like you playing Elden Ring.
Yeah, you were grinding away in the Forbidden Crossroads, and you were like, this game sucks. It hates me. I hate it. But eventually, I was like really happy that you had like a breakthrough with Hollow Knight, and you ended up going much further than I ever did. Like you went into the path of pain and the true ending. And so the fact that you are... interested in Hollow Knight Silksong to the degree that you are, it's like I'm very happy that came from the Hollow Knight present, and that feels like a Christmas present job well done. But Silksong is coming. I think the release date for it has been kicked back forever. We first saw it like 3 or 4 years ago, but in an Xbox and Bethesda showcase last year in June, it was a showcase of games coming in the next 12 months. So if that time frame holds, then the game's coming before like July. So it's in the first 6 months of this year. What are your hopes and dreams for Silksong?
I hope it's not just the same game. Like if it feels like a Hollow Knight DLC, but you're playing as, what's her name?
Hornet.
I was saying Needle then, because she has a needle. I don't want it to just be the old Hollow Knight, but you're playing as Hornet. Like I want new and exciting things. I think it's interesting for our experience, because I remember being very, very frustrated with that game, and then feeling the get good power, as we called it. I think I beat my first a couple bosses, and I just suddenly was like, oh my god, this is very much the Souls-like power that you feel when you
right.
fight and you fight and you fight again and you succeed. And
right, there is a Souls-like influence in Hollow Knight for sure. It's like half Metroid, half Souls, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I mean, even the combat. I mean, it's 2D combat, but even the combat is basically Souls combat. And yeah, I mean, I would just be happy to be in that world again. Even if it was the same game, I'd probably still love it. But in
all that I've managed to glean so far about like what Silksong is going to be, like there have been crumbs here and there, and I've watched all the trailers, and it seems that the Hallow Nest was this journey into the deep where you just go down and down and down, and it gets deeper and deeper and darker and darker. And it seems like Silksong is a journey upwards. So it seems like a different style in that way. So you are ascending something. I'm not sure what you are ascending, but the way that they have described it is. So I looked it up. I looked up the description of the game as given by Team Cherry, just out of interest, and they say discover a vast haunted kingdom in Hollow Knight Silksong, the sequel to the award-winning action adventure. Explore, fight, and survive as you ascend to the peak of a land ruled by Silk and Song. Super interesting. Like if you. The footage that we've seen of Hornet fighting, she does seem to have like area of effect attacks more than like the Hollow Knight main character did. I forget what their name was. It wasn't Hollow Knight. The Hollow Knight was it was the Vessel, wasn't it? The Vessel, right? So the little dude that we controlled in Hollow Knight. It seems that Hornet is like she's weaving more. So there's more like throwing the needle and then pulling it back, so you get like all of that as damage, and she has this area of attack where she throws the thread around and stuff like that. And Song, like, so Silk and Song, like, what is that going to be? I mean, one of my most memorable recollections of Hollow Knight is the opera singer.
Yes.
Did you witness that?
Yeah. I think I accidentally killed her.
Oh yeah, right. But that moment where you're like, you find the ghost of an opera singer, and she sings to you, and I just sat there looking at the screen, listening to this take place, and got goosebumps. Like Hollow Knight was so much better than you might think from looking at it. Like if you hear that it's like a Soulsy Metroidvania, like that, there are so many games that do that stuff. It's a cliche. But what Hollow Knight did was something different. It was to present a world that was so huge and so deep and so surprising and opaque that it just was a whole other thing. It was like this little gothic wonderland in a way. And, you know, one of the things that I've heard as well was that they kept going with that game. So they just kind of, they thought they were finished, and then they had another idea and they just bolted it on. And it seems like maybe the fact that Silksong has gone so long in development is maybe that's happening again. Maybe they are just building and building and building this next little ant hive that is coming our way. Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, it could. If they want to take another 2 years, that's fine by me.
I think you're probably the only person, you're probably the only Hollow Knight fan who is saying that. Like Silksong is like, it's the game that I see like people stamping on the floor about most of all on Twitter.
I see that too, but I think we just need to stop striving for things to come out unfinished.
Yeah. Well, if I think that actually, like, if Xbox have said these are games that are coming out in the next year, like it just. That feels a little more like there's a ring around it. So I hope that it comes out. I mean, it's the kind of game that could come out at such short notice, and that the anticipation is so high that they could do that. They could just Beyonce it and just drop it out of the blue. You know, it could be a shadow drop.
I mean, yeah. Who was that Microsoft person tweeting that it's going to be like day one on Game Pass? Like, if they're already having conversations about, you know, publishing and circulation, like they must be in beta testing at this point. Like they can't still be in early development, right? Like if they've got this massive gaming giant to sign up to it, then I think we're probably only a few months away.
So what's your bet? When is Silksong coming? You have to put your cards on the table. You have to put money on the table.
What's the date today?
Today is the 11th of January. The deadline, if the Xbox showcase games coming in the next year holds up, would be June 12th.
My prediction is, and mark my words here because I might be right, I think Silksong is going to come out on August 18th.
Oh no, I think it's going to, okay, so just to counter that.
August 18th or May 21st. And I hope that someone in the gaming press can write up they can use this for an article of like surprise leak release date for Silksong.
Right. Tech Reporter predicts Silksong release date on Indie Podcast. The headline writes itself. I'm going to say I think it's coming out really soon. I think they're finished. I think it's coming out in like March or something, and it will just happen really suddenly. And it'll be like Silksong's here.
Well, see, March 18th was my first thought, but then you said that the deadline was June, and I pushed it back.
Are you picking like your lucky lottery dates here or something?
No. It's either March 18th, August 18th, or what was the other one I said? May 23rd. Silksong coming out then.
You have to pick one, man. That's a lot of dates. You're only allowed one date. What's your final answer?
March 18th.
March 18th?
March 18th.
You dialed that back. I thought it was going to be August. I thought you said August.
March 18th, and if it's not that, it's going to be August 18th. Okay. And if not, it's going to be May 23rd.
March 18th or August 18th. All right. Next time we do a podcast together, let's like figure out how this shook out.
Whoever's closer has to buy the other one, Silksong.
On Game Pass.
On Game Pass.
All right. A month of Game Pass sub. It's a bet. The main game that I'm looking forward to, I mean, I'm looking forward to Zelda. I'm looking forward to Silksong for sure. Those are two big ones this year. I think like there's one coming up at the end of this month that I have got a feeling about it actually. I've got that, sometimes you just know, like Sable, I just knew, and it ended up being like a game that I completely love. There's one game coming up on the 31st of January. It's maybe the indie game I'm looking forward to the most this year. Season A Letter to the Future. Don't particularly love the title, but do love the look of the game and have played the demo. So the way that the developers describe this one is leave home for the first time to collect memories before a mysterious cataclysm washes everything away. Ride, record, meet people, and unravel the strange world around you. Immerse yourself in the world of Season, a third-person atmospheric adventure bicycle road trip game. Like, why the hell is adventure bicycle road trip game not like a Steam category? This is the first one.
I think I've seen the trailer for this. It's got the young fella, and it looks quite dramatic, and he's like cycling down a hill.
It's not a fella. It's like a young woman with an afro and some round shades, like John Lennon style. But it's definitely you're definitely biking down through like through beautiful firewatchy leafy trees.
I remember something. Hang on, I'm going to look up a picture.
You do photography and you do recording. So the thing that has drawn me to this game, like as well as the look of it, it's like, sometimes like documenting the world in games can be good or bad. Like in, for example, Miles Morales, I think my least favorite part of it was like searching the environment for audio cues. But then in other games like in Alba, the wildlife adventure, like photographing nature and putting together a scrapbook of stuff was the thing that I liked most about that game. And Season, I think, like I hope, it's going to fall on the right side of that. Like it's a game where I love the premise. I love the idea of documenting a season because it's going to end and documenting it for someone. So this game just has this very thoughtful feel and it looks good. The music seems good. The visual style is good. The concept is good. Like bicycling, photographing, recording. Like I'm really hopeful for this one. And I did play the demo. It's a pretty short demo. But at the end of the demo, you kind of emerge from this little town where some of the mechanics have been introduced to you. And you just ride down this hill and there are leaves blowing. I guess it's like the intro sequence and then it's a Season, A Letter to the Future. And I was like, fuck yeah. So I think that's like the game that I'm most looking forward to. And it's actually coming out in like 3 weeks. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not Game Pass. It's PC and PS5 to begin.
I'll have to dust off my gaming laptop then.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the one that I'm looking forward to most, I think. There's another game called Birth that I've been looking forward to, but That got bumped back from December to February. Anything else on your radar for the new year?
I don't even know what's coming out this year. I want to see the Last of Us TV show. That's what I want to do.
Right, isn't that coming out in a few days?
I think it might be out. I don't know.
I think it might be the 15th. I think I saw 15th on Twitter.
Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'd be up for that. I think it sounds like they're taking it kind of back to the series roots. Mm-hmm. More narrative driven, not open world, and more stealth focused. And I think that would be very welcome, actually, because I think that game's just got too big. And the old games were really good. They had fun stories and everything. But I'm a sucker for Assassin's Creed. You know what? I was just giving out about annual release targets, but I get them every single time they come out. So,
and then moan about them later, but like have a good time in the moment when you're playing it, right?
Yeah, but the biggest one by far is Company of Heroes 3, which I can't wait for, actually. I
don't even know what Company of Heroes is. Where's that?
Company of Heroes is made by Relic. So it came out in I played the first one, I think it was 2006 it came out. So it was one of my first. Sorry, my cat is snoring next to me.
I can't hear it. I wish I could.
Well, in a minute, I'll put the mic. I'll put the mic next to her.
Like mic that snoring cat.
She knows something's up, so she stopped. If it starts again, I'll do it. No, but Company of Heroes is it's by the people who made Warhammer 40k. They made Age of Empires. Homeworld from the 90s as well.
Sounds like it's going to be an RTS.
Yes, they basically make RTS games, and Company of Heroes was at the time I guess there was a saturation of World War II themed strategy games, but it came out and I think it blew a lot of people away because it was just, I don't care for the setting, but the way it works is just very, very cool. It was the first game to have that I know of that had fully destructible environments. It had a cover system. So even though it's real time and you're above, you'd have your different units and everything. You'd have to play with the cover almost. And you'd start off in sort of a battlefield that had lots of buildings and everything. And by the end of every game, the whole place would just be like a burning wreck. But as the buildings broke, new cover would be created. So you'd have new opportunities for encounters and everything. And I played this game to death when I was at high school. And me and my friends would get home from school and log on and we have voice chat back in the day when it was Teams on TeamSpeak, not Discord.
Sweaty gamer play.
Yeah, bad interfaces and all that. And we played Company of Heroes. We do skirmishes, and then I picked up Company of Heroes 2 last year because I had a first gaming PC, and it just brought it all back. I just dived straight into some skirmishes, and it's just a joy. It's just so much fun. It's a little bit tense, a little bit, you've got to kind of focus and all this, and I just love RTS as a genre, and I think it's a genre that has kind of died a death, probably because consoles have become more popular, and it doesn't translate well to consoles, but this one is going to be on console, from what I know. I think it's going to be on Xbox and PlayStation. And I don't know if it's going to be Game Pass or something, but I'm just really excited for this game. It was one of my favorites as a kid. It's not quite in the same league as if a new Half-Life came out, but this was definitely something that I'd love to see another game of. And even if you're not into strategy games or the war setting or anything, I think it's just a lot of fun, basically. You can have hours and hours of Company of Heroes.
All right, and is it number 3 that you're waiting for?
Yeah, number 3. It says late 2022. I think it's
okay.
It's out on imminent. PC first. Yeah.
So that's it. Then it's Tears of the Kingdom, Silksong, Company of Heroes 3. Are those your big ones for this year?
Yeah, I'm probably the new Assassin's Creed, just because. I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we talk again, I guess it was almost a year since the last time we did this. Hopefully, it won't be as long next time. But maybe if Company of Heroes 3 or Mirage comes out, or Maybe after Zelda comes out, maybe we can talk again and see how these went.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, also there was another one called Stalker 2. That's coming out. That's going to be crazy. Heart of Chernobyl.
Right? Isn't that a Ukrainian game maker? So it got pushed back a bunch for reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it was meant to come out in 2012. If that's any indication. I think the original game, the first Stalker, was in development hell for like 18 years or something. And it was meant to be the first open world shooter, basically. And then by the time they got around to kind of finishing it, they realized that like technology just wasn't there yet. And they had to basically just fence off like large areas of the open world and turn it into a level game. Man. And the graphics, which looked amazing when they announced it, just looked like dog shit by the time it came out.
Yeah, that's such a bummer, isn't it? I was seeing some like Twitter gossip that Scalebound might be coming back, like the cancelled dragon battling like Xbox game that just got like cancelled a few years ago. And I'm not sure like if you pick up a game that's been 3 years cooling off, isn't like everything, the very basis that you started developing it on has moved on, you know what I mean? I don't know if you can pull it back.
No.
It's a moving target, like the fidelity that people expect and like what the technology has to offer. It's such a moving target that like if you fall off development that way, it's just really hard to pull it back up.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I think they've moved development to Prague, I think, or Czech Republic or something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's been continuity there, but yeah, the tone of that game and the sort. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the Andrei Tarkovsky film Stalker. Like,
yeah, I actually went to some of the locations it was filmed at in Estonia.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much. It's almost like inspired by that game. Like the whole thing is about the exclusion zone at Pripyat and all that. And I think at that time, Chernobyl hadn't actually happened, had it? Or had it? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure about the timeline of Stalker 2 and Stalker the movie and Chernobyl. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Stalker predates the Chernobyl explosion, but then the game Stalker has kind of tied them two together in terms of tone and the idea of this mysterious exclusion zone where things start getting all a bit scary and messed up and the laws of physics are breaking. And yeah, it's just a very, very atmospheric vibe.
Yeah, I think it's on Game Pass, right? Stalker 2. I think I've seen it in the coming soon section for like indefinitely in Game Pass.
Yeah. I think just whenever.
I think at one point it was possible to download it for the release date. Then it just got like kicked back by a year. I think I had it on my system at one point even. I think I might have pre-downloaded it in order to play it. And yeah. But it's a massive, massive game. Yeah, I remember that it was just a huge game that I had to bump it from my memory when it got delayed.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of sequels, I think. I think 2023 is just the year of the sequel, it seems. You've got Alan Wake 2, you've got all these other things coming out.
Alan Wake 2 slated for this year? You kidding me?
Yeah, it is.
Wow. I don't think that. You know what? Okay. It's one of my predictions. Like we've got your predictions for March 18th or August 18th for Silksong. One of my predictions is Alan Wake 2 is not coming out this year.
No, probably not. Well, that was also another game that was meant to be open world in 2007 when DirectX 10 came out, and then they just shelved that at the last minute. And yeah, I mean, maybe these developers now can actually achieve these things they were trying to do 13, 14, 15 years ago.
Seems like Remedy as a company has grown a lot after Control, but I don't know, man. I didn't see Alan Wake 2 coming. I feel like if it was coming, we would have heard more about it by now.
Starfield,
right. So I'm like fascinated by Starfield because like I've played some Bethesda games, played a bit of Skyrim, finished Fallout 4, and felt like Fallout 4 was creaky. That was a creaky game. That felt like a game that was built on an engine that was old. Mm-hmm. It felt like that game was creaking. I'm not sure if when that came out that felt new, but it sure as hell felt old when I played it. And I get the feeling that like watched the NoClip documentary about Bethesda as well, and it does seem like there is a lot of continuity in their development process. So they are not. I think after I played Fallout 4, I was like, that was a good game, but you know what? They need to do the next thing in a new engine. Like those plasticky faces and that jank. Yeah. Like the amount of stuff that goes wrong.
Like, turn to you and they're like, hello.
Yeah, what the hell? Like that, you know, that guy that was the Skyrim social media guy. He was like doing all of the, like, I took an arrow in the knee and then turns right away from you, whatever.
He's under trial for his suspicion of murdering his wife or something.
Oh, good God. Well, that's horrible news. That's horrible news. But like, but Bethesda jank is real. And the fact that we saw did you see the video of Starfield gameplay that came out where you kind of come down a hill and there's a couple of like slimes that come for you and you like shoot them and collect their slime. And then like you get to a camp and then you go into a ship. And it was like, I don't know. I'm optimistic for Starfield, but I think perhaps that optimism is misplaced because if they're trying to do the No Man's Sky thing, like what No Man's Sky has is the generative thing, and it has the seamlessness taking off from your camp, flying through the atmosphere into space, and the way that everything is woven together in No Man's Sky. I mean, that's a janky game, like no doubt at all, but Bethesda apparently have not even tried to do that. So I think from what I understand, you can be on a planet, you can build bases, you can go and do quest stuff. That's what's available to you. But if you leave a planet, I think it's loading screen. So, yeah, that's what I heard at least. So that kind of cuts that flowing No Man's Sky endless universe gameplay. It cuts that. I mean, No Man's Sky sidestepped that neatly by having these warp sequences where you fly through the void and appear somewhere else, which is basically a loading screen, but a really cool one. So I'm not sure what to expect from Starfield. If it turns out that it's full Fallout 4 gunplay, sub No Man's Sky universe exploration, and loads of plastic-faced automatons, which is like kind of the Bethesda thing. Like, I don't know. I want it to be amazing, but I feel like I'm out on a limb by believing that, if you know what I mean.
I think I'd probably be more excited for the sequel to Skyrim than I would be for... I never liked Fallout. I just thought it was kind of repetitive, boring game. But actually funny, I installed Skyrim the other day because, again, my girlfriend has never played games and wanted to start playing a game, and I got to make a character on Skyrim, and she was looking at it. And obviously, yeah, they have these janky, like, bad graphics and everything, but for someone who'd never gamed before, she saw it and she was like, oh my God, I didn't even know games could be this. She was like, this looks amazing. Like, I didn't know you could have like characters talking and story and like all this thing. And I remember when Skyrim came out and people were glued to that game. I think Fallout 4 uses like a modified version of the same engine or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, they sit on those games for many, many, many years. And I don't know, maybe if the way their development is the same, they'll do, you know, the next Fallout game is probably just a modified version of whatever the next Elder Scrolls engine is. Because when Oblivion came out, it had like the best graphics anyone had ever seen. When Skyrim came out, people were like, oh my God, this looks incredible. And then you get 3 years on, you're like, that looks like absolute crap.
Right. I just Googled it while you were speaking, and they use the Creation engine. It's a proprietary engine based on their Gamebryo engine, and they used it to make Elder Scrolls 3, Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, Fallout 3. That was Gamebryo, and then they advanced it and used it to make Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76. I've got a feeling that they're working on the same creaky stuff. Like I think after playing Fallout 4, my main takeaway was this was a really good game that felt older than it should feel.
Yeah.
Given when it was released, you know?
It felt old when it was new. Like, it came out, I think it kind of hit the shelves, like bargain shelves, around the same time as Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right, like, 2015. And like, yeah, it doesn't feel like... Yeah, I'm curious to see. Like, how far has Bethesda come? It's their first big release since Fallout 76, right? And there's a lot pinned on it. And now they've been bought by Xbox, and so they've kind of got infinite money. Like, I'm very curious what Starfield will be. And I am hopeful. I remain optimistic about that game. Like, I want it to be good. But I've got doubts, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at it. Horizon Zero Dawn was 2017, so there's 2 years between Fallout 4 and Horizon, but it looks like 10 years.
Right. The faces, the Bethesda faces. Come on, guys. Like, look at Forbidden West. Like, we have this facial capture is like almost like cinematic. It's like almost like film now, you know?
Yeah.
And if some of the faces that we saw in the Starfield footage it was Fallout. It was plastic face. It was Bethesda plastic face.
It's just an emotionless, like, dead stare.
It's almost like when you look at the Forbidden West, it's like you can see the musculature beneath the skin. You can see the pores on the skin. You can see the hairs on the skin, and the facial capture of every micro gesture, of every like raised eyebrow. You know, it's all there. So when you're looking at the characters speaking in Forbidden West, it's astounding. It's astonishing. And like some of that Starfield stuff, like the trailer that we saw, it was plastic face. They're still on plastic face. So you have to say like, but if that game's coming out now, it's been delayed a few times, then they must have started that around the time that Horizon was coming out. And if they were still using their creation engine, then the faces are going to be based on that technology, you know?
Yeah.
I know. Well, I feel like Bethesda just needs electricity run through it somehow. It's like this cozy, dusty game making behemoth. But like if you watch like the No Clip documentary was really funny. Like the people that have been working there for 20 years or whatever, they take pride in that people have come through from their first game to their most recent game. I wonder if Bethesda is not a little in need of refreshment somehow.
I mean, maybe it's similar to the Dark Souls developers, you know. You've just got people who've been there for a couple decades.
Seems a lot like that.
Imagine you start your career like programming on, I don't know, MS-DOS. You'd probably, like, technologies move so fast, maybe you'd be like, oh, I think this PlayStation 4 looks pretty good, actually, 2023.
Right. Get a feeling a little bit with Bethesda. I feel like they're like becoming this slightly cranky company somehow. Like like one step behind.
It's just like curmudgeonly old, like
yeah, a little bit.
Do you ever remember there was that Terry Gilliam short film about like this post? It was called The Crimson Permanent Assurance, and it was about like this I think an insurance company or assurance company run by like just exclusively by elderly British people, and they were getting like overtaken by the very big corporation of America that was like young, hip corporate people, and then all the old people turned their little like office into a pirate ship and like have a pirate battle with this big young corporation. I feel like that's Bethesda. They're just all these sort of old like codgers just fighting against the wave of time.
Little bit. That is a little bit the vibe I get from them. But I mean, I really hope Starfield is good, honestly. I want it to be great. You know, I'm a huge sci-fi game fan. Nothing I love more than like future visions, exploring amazing worlds is absolutely my thing. I just hope it's not creaky as fuck and like, I don't know. Okay, one more bet, Ciaran. One more bet for the road.
Okay.
Starfield Metacritic score.
What, a critic score or user score?
Both.
I think the user score is going to be like 6.
Okay.
People always hype Bethesda games and then they end up not as good and then everyone gets annoyed.
And it will maybe get review bombed, so we have that to deal with now too.
Yeah, but I think the meta score will probably be, I reckon like the IGN will give it a 9 out of 10 just because. So I'm going to say
you think it's going to be, you think a 9? You think it's going to be up there with the Sony games?
It's going to get like a 90. They'll score it the same as Skyrim.
Okay, I'm going differently on this one. Okay, I'm making a note of this for the next time we talk. Ciaran says Metascore 9, user score 6.
Yeah.
John says Metascore 82.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like The
82.
critics,
I feel like I'm going high. I feel like that's where my faith is in this game. It's like,
the critics are going to love it because they'll do something like really cool with dialogue trees or something. And they'll be like, this is revolutionary. And then,
I hope so. I don't think Revolutionary belongs to Bethesda anymore, but I hope to be proven wrong. User score?
Oh, it looks good.
You've gone for a 6. I think it's going to get bombed to shit. I'm going to say 4. I'm taking the low ground on that one.
I think it's just too hyped. It's too hyped, and things that are hyped end up being bad most of the time, or they don't. But you have the fanboys who just get annoyed that things aren't the way they were when they were young and innocent. Also, too many dungeons.
Too many dungeons.
That's Bethesda's problem. They're all old people in a little dungeon, just making games about silly little dungeons, and like everything you do, you just have to go into a tiny little dungeon, and the whole game is just walking around looking for dungeons. I'm sick of it. And Starfield's going to be no different, except the dungeons will be in space and there'll be planets. Right.
That's the worry. Okay, so the bets that I've got here, I'm trying to make notes of our bets. I feel like I might have missed one. I've got the Starfield bet. I've got the Silksong bet. Was there another bet? I feel like there was one more bet.
My other bet is that Nintendo will announce the next Switch console with the Tears of the Kingdom as a launch title that's on Switch and Switch 2.
You kidding me? Okay.
And they're going to do it on September 2nd.
You think that Tears of the Kingdom is getting kicked back to September and coming out with a new console?
Yes.
Okay, I'm writing that down. I think that Tears of the Kingdom is going to come out on its release date and that there will be no Nintendo console. So
I didn't even know it had a release date.
Yeah, it's March 9th. May 9th, rather. May 9th.
Well, look, I think it will be a launch title on the next console either way.
So you don't think it's getting... So you think you want to hold to that release date, say it comes out on release date, but you think a new Nintendo console is coming out like it did with the Switch and Breath of the Wild. You think that's happening? You're not alone in that opinion, by the way. Like people... Like there's someone in our Discord called Hoppo who has been predicting that this will launch with a new Nintendo console. So you're not alone.
September 2nd, mark my words.
September 2nd.
Specifically.
I say no new Nintendo console this year.
Yeah.
And that the game will come out on the planned release date. All right, we've got 3 bets. I think next time we do a podcast... it's probably like later on in this year, unless we manage to get it together sooner. We've got 3 bets to compare. We can compare our notes and see who came out on top there.
We'll do on September 3rd, the day after the new Nintendo console is announced.
You're going to call an emergency meeting.
Yeah.
Be like, John, we need to talk. Okay, let's do it. Well, thanks very much for the chat, Ciaran. It was lovely to talk games with you again.
Oh, that's always a pleasure.
And should people come and find you online somewhere, or do you want them to leave you alone?
I mean, you just Google my name, you'll find me.
No one knows how to spell your name.
Oh, that's true. Look up Radical Art Review. Let's go with that.
Radical Art Review. So it's radicalartreview.org, I believe, right?
That's it.
And Rad Art Review on Twitter.
Yeah, I have my own Twitter as well, CMG_Daly at twitter.com, but no one's going to be able to spell that, so don't worry about it.
Okay, we'll put it in the description so people can find you and stalk you. All right, thanks, Ciaran. Take it easy.
Thanks, John. Happy New Year.
So I hope that you enjoyed that chat with Ciaran Daly. I certainly did. It's been a while since I talked games with Ciaran, and it's always a pleasure to catch up with him. I have some interesting stuff coming up. I have a 2023 indie game preview, but I also have a couple games that I'm playing that I might talk about in the next episodes. I have Lil Gator Game, which is this really cute little Switch game that draws on Breath of the Wild and draws on a short hike. I've also been playing a bit of Blacktail, this first-person archery, crafting, witchcraft game set within Slavic mythology. It's very gothic, it's very dark, it's kind of scary actually, and really interesting too. So I've been playing Little Gator Game and Blacktail. Those are my first 2 games of the year. I do also have that Lone Ruin promo waiting to go, and I'm also going to play The Curse of the Golden Idol, and I'm going to try out The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow as well. So loads of interesting games that I will be covering in the coming weeks. Thanks very much for listening, and if you do want to support this show, you can do so by sharing it on social media, sending it to a friend, tweeting out the episode if you like it. You can leave a star rating or a review on your podcast service of choice. And you can also become a patron at patreon.com/gaminginthewild if you'd like to come and chat to me and the other patrons over on Discord. Other than that, just a big thank you for listening. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Take care of yourselves and each other, and bye-bye for now.